American poet Thomas B. Aldrich wrote, "To keep the heart unwrinkled, to be hopeful, kindly, cheerful, and reverent, that is to triumph over old age." Welcome to the Unwrinkled Heart Caregiver's Journeys.
Hello, welcome to the Unwrinkled Heart Caregiver's Journey, and I'm your host, Kern Cherry. And today we're going to be talking about caregivers and their issues that they struggle with day to day and the guilt. And so what I want to do is tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in this business, I've been in the healthcare business for over 30 years. I've been doing home care for 20 years. And I don't know if people realize, but right now in America, we have over 76 million baby boomers, and that population grows every day. And then in addition to that, we also have 39 million of them that are actually caregivers across America. And a lot of caregivers struggle with the issue of taking care of their family members and where to find the information and the resources that they need to find the proper care for their loved ones, whether it be a mom and dad or a disabled adult child. So what our program plans to bring to you is information about resources and information about caregiving, whether it be a healthcare professional joining us here on the set, or whether there's a caregiver that's coming to share their experience of taking care of their loved one. I personally have my own struggles that I've dealt with my mother. I've been the caregiver for her for the last about 7 to 10 years, and I continue to take care of her and try to keep her in her own living environment. So today, I'm proud to say that I'm going to be joined by Jeff O'Keefe of Bradford O'Keefe Funeral Home and my dear friend Vicki Hensley from PRN Home Care. So join us back here after the commercial for a conversation with Jeff O'Keefe. Welcome back to the Unwrinkled Heart Caregiver's Journey. Today I have with me Jeff O'Keefe of Bradford O'Keefe Funeral Home. And they have been here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast since 1865. Can you believe they've been in the business for over 150 years, serving all of our people across the Mississippi Gulf Coast with over 6 funeral homes here on the Gulf Coast. So I'm so thrilled to be here talking to Jeff today. And Jeff, you're the president and CEO.
Yes, Kern, we've had other family members in the business, but yeah, it's a privilege to be able to continue the tradition of serving families along the Gulf Coast.
And my understanding is that your dad actually came into the business after he was a war vet. Am I correct?
He was involved in World War II, and at the conclusion of the war, finished his education at Loyola over in Louisiana, and then came into work with his father in the business, and as a 4th generation member, and so, wow. And then he, operated and did other things during the course of his life. But I was able to join him along the way, and it was a real privilege to work with him. He was a dynamic fella, and so there was always some excitement going on as far as different business dealings that he had, not only in the funeral home operation, but he developed an insurance division and a mortgage and finance division, and so he had a lot of business acumen about himself and all. So
I mean, well, I met him over the years, and he really was a wonderful man, and people just, one thing I noticed about him, he had the ability to go out and ask people for money to help with charities, And they trusted him so much that they supported him. I remember the Orr O'Keefe Museum, he came on board, and I was volunteering there, and he helped get that going in the right direction with the new museum that we have now.
Yeah, his generosity definitely was one of his hallmarks. Yes. I mean, he was very philanthropic to many different organizations. And there's a lot of good causes out there, and so he was always of a mind to try to help the communities in which we live and to help people.
And you joined the organization back in 1970?
Yes, I finished my college education and returned into the business, and of course I worked in it in high school, kind of grew up in it, but I achieved a business degree and then was led to kind of continue this line of the work, even though there were many divisions. I felt like that this particular line of the business is where the lineage was. It went all the way, as you mentioned, all the way back to 1865. Wow. And so, you know, essentially I'm a fifth generation member serving the families along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And it's a very rewarding thing to be able to help people at the time of need. And so we're proud to be able to serve the families who call upon us.
And that's that. And I don't think a lot of people know, but y'all actually, when you mention the division part, I don't think people realize that y'all are more than just a funeral home. You do other services like...
Well, as I mentioned, during the course of my dad's career, he branched out into other, you know, business ventures, such as finance companies and mortgage companies, and then the insurance division. But I'm number 10 of 13 children and our family, and so as it worked out, the family were all shareholders in the business. And as my dad neared the latter part of his life, he did some succession planning like anybody should, and so he made a conscious decision to market the insurance division because the family members, as I say, were shareholders, and it was a way for him to benefit his children. And so, but the funeral home operation with the lineage, we wanted to continue in our family succession plan, continue to operate that, and so I'm heading that up now. So
all those years you worked with your dad, and becoming the president and CEO in 1983, and then working alongside of him, and then transitioning into the period of time where you could, you know, what was it like realizing that he really needed a little more help at home? I know he had a wife, and so what was it like when you saw that you as a family?
Oh, you mean with his health and everything?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody's situation is unique, but, you know, Dad was you know, he was a large frame man. He had a, you know, big presence, and so that was some of our concern was, you know, I mean, you're a big guy. If you have a fall, you know, and that's a routine concern for people who have and are caring for elderly, is falls, you know, and so that's a big fear, and it was for us, just like it would be for anyone else. And so as you mentioned, his wife was there, and she gave him excellent care, you know, but I mean, you know, you got a big guy, if he trips, you know, I mean, that's a concern, you know, I mean, that's a concern. And he had a situation where he didn't fall hard, but he went down easy and called me one day. And I went over, you know, I couldn't lift him up. I'm going to tell you, he's a big guy, you know, and people run into that, you know. So fortunately, I had help that I could call upon, and we were able to, you know, get him back up and resituated. But it was kind of right at that period, see, where that raised a lot of concern. If he did have a fall, you know, or how could we prevent him from having a fall? you know, obviously he, like any other person in that situation,
Right.
wants to maintain their independency as long, you know,
as long as possible.
long as possible. And
Now,
so,
and you said your sisters came in to help y'all?
that,
I don't
but-
know if a lot of people
well,
realize.
you know, our family's spread out.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of us, and so there's a few local ones, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just he and his wife living together,
Right.
see? And so even though I live locally and a couple other families live locally, they're not at the house.
Right.
And so with he, like any other, you know, other
Mm-hmm.
families, there's it's kind of a check
Mm-hmm.
and balance on, well, when do you do this? When do you do that? How do you do it?
So not to interrupt you. So y'all actually came together and did a lot of things and worked together to take care of your dad. So it's always interesting to learn that family members come together, keep their family members at home, and actually instead of putting them in a facility. So I always found that interesting about your family. So Jeff, we're so great. I'm so glad that you were able to come out and join me today and spend some time and just kind of give us a little insight of you and your family and how y'all came together for your dad. So I really appreciate you taking the time out today to come out today and do that. Welcome back to the Unwrinkled Heart Caregiver's Journey. And I'm here with Jeff O'Keefe as we continue to talk about the services that y'all set up for your dad, or the things that you did for your dad as far as caregiving for him at home.
Yes.
Can you go, so what actually did y'all do? What was your plan?
Well, you know, our situation, Kern, was that we were a large family. I got 7 sisters, and a number of those sisters basically came in. They, you know, and that happens in a lot of families when somebody is, their health is failing. A lot of the time the family comes together, and that's what happened with us. Our family came in and offered direct support, but we still needed the oversight of, you know, some home health care and services for, you know, for some guidance, because none of my sisters are nurses or anything like that, and so we needed to know what to do and when to do it and those sorts of things. And so we got a lot of, you know, good help there, but really the family were the ones who were providing the care and that happens that way in a lot of families' instances.
And so I really want to thank you for coming out today.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. I'm sure it was hard. It's being in the funeral business and planning your dad's funeral.
It's a struggle for any family that runs into that situation.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad you joined me today.
Absolutely.
And we'll be right back. We will be right back after the commercial with Vicki Hensley of PRN Home Care. Welcome back to the Unwrinkled Heart Caregiver's Journey. And I'm so happy to be here today with one of my dear friends, Vicki Hensley, who I met years ago, back right after Hurricane Katrina. I actually went to the facility that she was working at, and from that point on, we've been friends ever since. Vicki's been working in the healthcare field for over 20 years now, and she spent about 13 plus in the assisted living arena. So, Vicki, I'm so glad that you were able to come out and join me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, anyway, I wanted to, as I say, tap the brain and ask you some questions. And if you can share with us about the assisted living, what are some of the things that family members first need to look at when they're considering putting their mom in an assisted living facility?
In the assisted living facility itself?
Yes.
Okay. There's a tour process, and there's 3 parts to the tour process. There's the discovery, the tour, and then the closing. And what I would tell families to look for is the discovery part is probably the most important part for the family, because this is where the marketing director, the facility should be asking questions about your loved one to get as much information to make sure that they can supply the right services. I would look for who's talking the most, the marketing director or the family. If the family's talking the most, then we're good. Then there's the actual tour that probably doesn't take that long. And again, you're looking at, is the facility listening? Are they taking you on a tour going everywhere, or are they taking you on a tour that is specific to what your loved ones need? And then the third part is a closing, where, you know, if you have any more questions for them, that's the time to get it all out. So think of that. Discoveries about listening, looking, what are they showing you, and do you have any more questions?
So another question, I think, well, how do you know that your family is ready for assisted living? That, for me, it's always been, you know, there are stages of taking care of somebody, being a caregiver. A lot of family members don't realize all the stages. Sometimes they start at home, and sometimes they pass home and go straight into a facility. But what do you think family members should look at when placed?
Again, I think it's it falls down to two issues, three issues maybe. Socialization. We all know that senior depression can come on very quickly. Is mom or dad getting enough socialization at home? Are they talking to other people? If they're not, you might want to look at an assisted living. The big one is safety. How safe are they at home? Are they getting the proper medications? Is the house safe? Did mom or dad just go into the hospital and they can't go home for right now? You can go to an assisted living facility. It doesn't have to be for the rest of their life. It can be for 4 or 5 months while they're getting rehab. And the last thing, of course, nobody wants to talk about, but I will, is cost. It can get very expensive at home. You know, do they have the right funding? Assisted living is going to be a little bit less expensive, I think, than 24-hour care at home. So that's a decision that the families have to make. And what I'd like to tell everybody about PRN and SAFE, call us. We will help you make those decisions. Sometimes when you got social workers and doctors and everybody coming at you or whatever, just take an hour aside, give us a call. We will sit down, you know, lay out a plan, listen to what you're saying so that you are making an informed decision and not an emotional decision.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize that there is a process you can go to and eliminate all the wondering and why, and that's where SAFE comes in and helps with that.
And I will be very happy to do that. Do you know the right questions to ask when you're going to an assisted living or a nursing home or whatever? We can help you with all that and be very happy to do so.
Okay, well, I am so glad that you were willing to come on and talk with me today and share some very important information for the caregivers. And I really appreciate you taking the time. So we will actually be back here. You can join us after the commercials. And thanks again, Vicki.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Unwrinkled Heart Caregiver's Journey. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Jeff O'Keefe of Bradford O'Keefe Funeral Home and Vicki Hensley with PRN Home Care. We look forward to you joining us next time as we discuss issues such as long-term care and also nursing home quality of care and its issues. See you next time at the Unwrinkled Heart Caregiver's Journey.